Hello and welcome to the 938 podcast. My name is Brian Garrison. I am one of the Associate Mission Directors here in the BBFI Mission Office. Excited to have some friends of mine and family as well joining us on the podcast today. Let me introduce you to BBFI Missionaries to Peru, David and Tonya Liles, and Oliver and Gloria Williams. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Good to have you guys here. And let me make the connection real quick, and then we'll kind of get going with the interview process here. So David and Tonya are relatives of mine. So Michelle and I, we were BBFI missionaries in Peru for 11 years. We worked right alongside David and Tonya. They're in Lima for a good time. And David and my wife, Michelle, are brother and sister. So that's the connection there. Oliver and Gloria, now I'll let them make the connection with each other, but Oliver and Gloria served as our Lima Nana and Papa. They kind of took our kids on as themselves. They would get them Christmas gifts and love on our kids while we were there in Peru. And we also worked together with them in the seminary, as I was able to have the opportunity to teach there as well. So we'll make all those connections as we talk. But let's get into the interview here. Before we do, though, just want to make sure that you click like and subscribe to the podcast. Please share the link to your social media platforms. Also, don't forget about the 938 Sunday coming up October 2nd this year. And go to project938.world for all the information on that. And we'll share a little bit more about that in the podcast. So, David and Tonya, Oliver and Gloria, so good to have you with us this morning. And we're going to start with David and Tonya. So tell us just briefly, let's get personal to begin with. Tell us real briefly how you guys met, how you got together, and kind of what you're doing right now.
Okay, I'll start on that one. But I'll make the connection real quick. Oliver and Gloria are my mom and dad. And so I'm a missionary kid to Peru. Now I'm a second generation missionary. And so I grew up in Peru. I lived here all my life. Whenever I was a teenager, I began to desire to be a missionary here. And whenever I went to college, shortly before I started going to college, we went to a missionary retreat, and that's where I met David, and we were teenagers. And it was also at that missionary, even before, I'll have to preface this, even before he realized who I was, he had surrendered to be a missionary to Peru during that week. He had been praying and fasting and asking the Lord to lead him to Peru. And when my dad spoke one morning, he definitely felt that God was directing him to Peru. Basically, when David was in graduate school and then I was in college, David made a trip to Peru, and that's where our relationship began. And we knew then that we were very likely going to get married and end up as missionaries in Peru. And so I got to come back home, and David, my husband, brought me back to the mission field that I loved and I knew, and the one that God had called into many, many years earlier.
Good. So, Oliver and Gloria, let's throw the same question to you guys. We may have to go back a little bit further for this. So how did you guys meet? How did God bring you together? Tell us a little bit about your family as well, and what you're currently doing ministry-wise there in Peru.
Well, I grew up in Mississippi, in southern Mississippi, and he grew up in area of Mobile, Alabama, Pritchard, Alabama. And our church was the only Baptist Bible Fellowship church in Mississippi at that time. Wow. And so our churches met together for a youth camp every year. And so it was at youth camp. I was about 8 or 9 days short of 14 when I met him. And then we retained that friendship. And when he went to BBC 1 year, and a year later I followed, and it was after that that we began dating. And then it was at BBC that the Lord began to deal with his heart about missions and Peru, and specifically, and also mine. And so that's the short of it.
Good, good. So currently, ministry-wise, what are you guys involved in? Just briefly. We're going to get more detailed in a minute.
Now we worked with the Bible school for 45 years, directing it, teaching it. And we were happy this last December to pass that great responsibility to David and Tonya. And they're doing an excellent job. And I have not retired, but I feel like I have retired at moments. But I've had the privilege of building a youth camp facilities for our fellowship of churches. We have always had a youth camp ministry here in Peru. It's been a blessing, and the Lord has blessed it. This year, we've had 1,800 people that have attended the camp ministry this year. And we're presently building more dorm space for workers and directors of the camp.
Wow. Oh, that's a good transition. The BBFI has had a presence in Peru for a long time now, very rich history and tradition. And so let's go back a little bit. Oliver and Gloria, we'll start with you. So I want you guys to give us a brief picture of the history of BBFI missions in Peru. I know the story, but we'd like to share it with those watching the podcast. So give us a history of the BBFI missions, kind of also where you guys fit in the big picture. So take it away, Oliver.
Okay, Rudy Johnson was our first missionary to Peru with the Baptist Bible Fellowship. He came in about 1959. He had joined the Navy after he got out of high school and was on a trip on a ship that docked in Lima at Callao. He said he had shore duty there, and he said he met the most ungodly place that he'd ever seen in his life there in the port city of Callao. And God began to deal with his heart about missions in Peru. But he was our first missionary here, starting at about 1959. Shortly after that, Ralph DeBoer came, the second missionary. And then we followed in 1971, Gloria and I came to participate in the ministry here. And Rudy invited us to work with him at the Bible school for 5 years. And he left in 1976 for about 15 years. He did come back and spent more years here in Peru. But in 1976, we had to receive the responsibility of the Bible school and have worked with the Bible school. We worked with the Bible school for another 45 years. And during that time, over the years, there have been 550 graduates from the different courses at the Bible school. And as I said earlier, we're glad that David and Tonya are here, and they're doing a great job with the Bible school. And it's going to be great in the future. It has a great future there. Mm-hmm. We've had another 10 or 12 missionary families that have come to Peru, and many of them have done a great work for the Lord here. And we're grateful for each of them. We're down to 3 missionary families right now and 1 single lady. The last 8 months, we've lost 3 families that have resigned. And we have a great opportunity in Peru. Peru is open to the gospel, and it is gladly receives missionaries. And we need more missionaries.
Yeah. So of the 550 plus graduates over the years of the Bible College, Dave, maybe you can speak to this. So give us an idea of where they are and what they've done. So, this is an extension of the BBFI Missionaries. So we now have churches that have been planted not only in Lima, but other parts of Peru, the jungle, the mountain areas, and I believe we've been able to send missionaries, Peruvian missionaries, to other parts of the world. So give us an idea of what that looks like.
Yeah, the Baptist Bible Seminaries had great success in training workers over the years. The missionaries had a vision to train people for ministry, to replace them from the beginning. And so they actually did that not only here in Peru, but we have several different missionaries that are representing us in Africa, in Thailand, in other places like that, that have graduated from here and have gone on to minister. In addition, here in Peru, not just the men who have become pastors, but some ladies have started a new printing press for Sunday school curriculum. And our education department here at the seminary has produced a printing press that now it's called Sembrando, or is giving out the seed of the gospel. And at that printing press, our graduates are writing lessons that are geniusly designed, not only for the age groups of children, but also they include lessons for parents during the week so that they can be making a backup of what children teach or learn at Sunday school. And so they really caught the vision of that. And you have ladies and men who have graduated from our seminary that are ministering in about 12 different provinces here in Peru, and others in the past. We have missionaries to Peru and missionaries to other countries as well. So it's kind of neat to be co-laboring with them at this phase in missionary ministry here. I suppose when Rudy Johnson got here, he was king of the land, but now we're more like co-laborers with wonderful Peruvian pastors. And having taught in 6 different Bible colleges around the world, I can say that the professors here at this Baptist seminary are the finest group of people that I've ever taught with. And I've taught in the United States, and here in Peru, and in other countries, and in the jungle of Peru. But this group of professors is doing a bang-up job. I'm really proud to be a part of it.
Yep, I would echo that sentiment. Being there and teaching alongside you and Brother Oliver and those Peruvian professors, I do agree with you there. So let's kind of continue that thread, David and Tonya. You mentioned some new ministries, but let's kind of look further. What are some maybe unique and possible future ministry opportunities there in Peru?
Well, since we are now or David is now the director here at the seminary, we are expanding the courses that will be offered here, and we will be offering new bachelor's degrees, and one of them is a bachelor's in counseling. And so we're really excited about that. We have very good professors, like David just said, that are qualified to teach this and join us in teaching our counseling and offering a bachelor's degree here. It comes to mind that what my dad, Brother Oliver, said a few minutes ago about this being one of the most ungodly places, or Rudy feeling that it was one of the most ungodly places whenever he first got here. Wow, that's still very much a reality. There was just a lot of statistics that came out this week about Peru being one of the most violent in terms of domestic violence and violence against women. One of the top 3 in certain areas and top 10 countries in the world about how lost we are in that area. And so our counseling degree is much needed and much accepted at the same time. And so we're looking forward to that. That's one thing that we're expanding on, as well as contributing to the material that's being written right now by the publishing house. And then there's also, David probably can explain a little bit more, but our online presence has increased dramatically, and we hope to continue to increase it. And David has ministries on that.
Online theological education, of course, is the thing of today, and we're expanding out in that. So our seminary has the opportunity to reach into living rooms and houses to people and train them in ministry, part-time and full-time, that it never had before. Our teachers have made a great transition. But we've identified 3 different areas where we can expand into ministry, and one of them is on personal holiness. Everywhere in South America certainly needs instruction on that. So for the last 965 days, we've been writing every day on personal holiness and sending out messages to about 500 people. And a ministry called Escape, or Perspectives on Purity, we have expanded into. Then as well, we write devotionals to ministers on how to be a slave of God. And the third topic would be, we're expanding into world vision because all of South America is experiencing the same degradation of society that the United States is experiencing. And so we have the same conversations about immorality and ethics and philosophy issues. So we're going to be starting camps, like a one-day camp where young people can come in and learn about biblical world vision, something that would help influence in all of the country, not just in pastors and leaders. So I think among the topics of, teaching on counseling, teaching on holiness, helping people with resources, so that parents can teach. In our city of 11 million people, 52% of the couples are not married. So as far as counseling issues and holiness issues and turning your life over to God, those are hot button issues where we're at. So we can see, as we studied the culture, that there's a lot of needs that the Bible addresses. So we're glad to expand into all of those areas, and we have been doing so for about the last 4 years.
That's great. That's great. So lots of opportunities. God's still moving and working, but I guess you would probably agree that you might need some help.
Jesus agrees with that.
Yeah.
He says that the harvest is plenteous. It's more plenteous than ever, and
Absolutely.
we have fewer workers from the Baptist Bible Fellowship. But God is raising up workers here in Peru and from other missions. We're just glad to be a part of all of it.
So Oliver and Gloria, I'm going to turn it over to you and give you an opportunity here. Now, you mentioned that you weren't retired yet, but we all know that there's coming that day. And so what once was a large BBFI presence there now is smaller. So I'm going to give you an opportunity for you to, just kind of cast the vision and tell us, why we need more BBFI missionaries there, why we need to expand our presence, and give you an opportunity to recruit a little bit.
Okay. Well, we're down to 3 families, missionary families would be, and one single lady, Raquel, that works down south. And let me say that we've had some great single missionaries here in Peru over the years, and more single missionaries would be a great honor to have them here working in the country of Peru with us. Peru is open to the gospel. It's easy to get a visa. The Peruvian people receive North Americans very warmly. We have a lot of national workers. There's over 100 graduates that are working in the various churches in Lima, but there are others that are willing to go to the provinces and work. There's workers available. The economy's good. Politics are the same. I won't say much about that, but nevertheless, we still have a democracy. We still have open, we have privileges and rights to preach the gospel and to start churches all over the country. And it is open to the gospel. Retirement, one day, the Lord willing, in a year or two, or next month, whenever he says go. But we are looking at that someday. I'm only 78 and she just turned 77. So we're still young enough. But the Lord's given us good health and a good responsibility and a good place to work. But one day, as the Lord sees fit, we'll be leaving. And we would like to have about 5 families to come and replace us, at least 5 to come and replace us. And that would be wonderful. And we're praying. And we pray every day for God to call more workers. Every day of our life we ask Him for, whether from North America or from the Peruvian population. And God is calling out more workers. So you pray with us that God will call more workers to Peru. Be specific, to Peru is what we're praying for.
Absolutely.
Let me add that I have never felt as though I had sacrificed anything in coming to Peru. However, the fact that we did, and that our Peruvian people, many of our Peruvian people feel that when people leave the United States and come to Peru to build a life and to spread the gospel, that they're making a sacrifice. And in some way, that is an encouragement to them that if they can do that, we can too. And so the presence of, even though we have done what Dr. Donaldson many years ago told us to do, is go and work yourself out of a job. And we feel like we've done that, but there never will come a time when the presence of a North American missionary will not be effective, I believe. And so even though we're covered, our bases are covered in many ways, it never will be. There never will be a need for not having missionaries from other places.
Yep. And Brother Oliver, I've been praying that prayer on a regular basis for the last 10 years since God took us off of the field of Peru, that God would continue to bring up more missionaries, raise them up, and send them specifically to Peru. So just want to invite you in the audience to join us in that prayer, praying specifically for the country of Peru. We need more missionaries there, and as Gloria mentioned, there will never be a time where it's not welcome or it's not necessary to have a missionary presence there. So join me in praying for God to raise up more missionaries to Peru. But as Oliver mentioned, they're not jealous or zealous just for Peru, that God would send more laborers into all of Latin America as well, because they need the gospel too. And so join us in that prayer if you will. Dave and Tonya, Oliver and Gloria, love you guys so much, and there's hardly a day that goes by that I don't miss working with you. And pray God's richest blessings on your ministries there in Peru, and then all around the world as you have an online global presence as well. And so thanks for joining us today. We sure appreciate the input. We sure appreciate the encouragement, and we're praying for God to send more laborers to come and work alongside of you.
Yeah, well, by the way, we have about 200 people praying at 9:38 every morning, along with people in the United States. We're asking God to give more laborers all over the world.
Fantastic.
Thanks for the impulse.
Yep. All right, and we'll encourage you again to like and subscribe the podcast, and be prepared to lead your church to participate in the 938 Sunday on October 2nd this year. And we have all the resources necessary for you at project938.world. Thanks again for joining us today. God bless you, and we pray God's richest blessings on you.